to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And roll call?
Andy Mary,
Yes.
Jim Balzer,
Here.
Mike Boulder,
Here.
Noel D,
Here.
Wayne Gagnon,
Here.
Jeannie Long, Mary Newfeld,
Here.
Danny Pyatt,
Here.
J.D. Schrader.
Here. Okay, we will go on to the oath of office for you, Wayne. If you'd like to read the oath. Yep, read it from right there.
I, Wayne Gagnon, having been appointed to the Board of Education of the Unified School District of Antigo, swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Wisconsin, and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Okay, welcome to the board.
Thank you.
And we will go on to the consent agenda.
I move the board approve the minutes from the August 25, 2020 annual budget hearing meeting and Board of Education meeting. Financial report from August 2020, consideration of current bills, checks number 4083 through 4142 in the amount of $148,137.73. ACHs numbers 202100098 through 202100165 in the amount of $795,018.62, and one wire transfer in the amount of $27,445.63 for a total of $970,601.98.
Second.
Any comments or discussion on the consent agenda? And then we'll go ahead and do a roll call.
Balzer,
Yes.
Boulder,
Yes.
Deep,
Yes.
Gagnon,
Yes.
Newfeld,
Yes.
Pyatt,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Mary.
Yes. And Tim, is there anybody signed in for public comment?
No one signed in.
And we'll go on to the COVID update.
Okay, well, as the board and likely the public knows, we've had our some positive cases since the start of the school year. So since September 1st, there have been 5 staff who've tested positive and a total of 2 students. However, the impacted of those who have to quarantine or had to quarantine as a result, we're up to 18 staff and 60 students. The 5 staff cases actually affected a total of 16 staff members and 36 cases. So some are back already from quarantine and some scheduled to come back. As we talk about moving forward and what happens with COVID rates in our community, one thing we do want the board and the public to know is that the cohort model seems to be working well, or as well as it can at the elementary and to some extent at the middle level. For example, when we've had a positive then and the health department goes through its questioning contact protocol, then those decisions in 3 cases have been to quarantine that limited number of students in the cohort. So usually around 10, and the teacher. So one question we'll have as we move forward too, we're hoping to invite students to come back in person second quarter if the family is comfortable doing that. It may be premature for the board to make that endorsement because we're not sure what will happen with rates between now and early November. But when we do make that decision, again, the cohort model seems to be working. So even if we would have more students in a classroom at elementary and middle school, we think we could continue moving forward as we are. High school gets a little bit trickier, as you understand, even though their classes the number of classes they take are limited, they still travel more than elementary and middle school students. What we are noticing is that staffing is an issue. When the teacher has to be out, we do not have the luxury of subs. We've always, this is my 3rd year, so we've been tight on sub coverage during normal times, and we just don't have many subs who are coming in at this time. I think it's partly the uncertainty. Melanie has reached out to a number of them, as have our school personnel directly. So it is likely in the future, we haven't had to yet, but it is likely in the future, as you read about other districts, if we can't staff a classroom, we may have to ask them to learn remotely for a temporary amount of time. We're getting very creative though. We've had teachers who have to quarantine, teach remotely, and then we have a supervisor in that classroom. We've had staff willing to cover for each other. We've had principals teaching. We are getting as creative as we can. But I believe there will come a time that we just can't type anymore, and we may have to ask a class to stay home for a short time. So with that, you may have read today that the governor's mandate for masks is now in effect until November 21st. So we're covered there. I've been prepared to ask you to keep your board level mandate in place, but we have that covering us now because, again, the kids are doing great, and in most cases the staff are too. I think the kids just see what is expected and what's being modeled for them, and they've been extremely resilient. Remote learning is getting better. As you know, that's the one area that we've had the roughest start with, but Canvas is live now, as you perhaps read on Friday. And today I know Amy was working with Mark Houtz and others to align it with Infant Campus so that the two systems are talking and we can move forward. I do have to tell you, with all of the glitches and the frustration, I was at the middle school the other day and I had a meeting with Amy and Heather, made my rounds after, walked into Bill Yeager's classroom, and he had 5 remote learners tuned right in. There they were on his computer and his in-person learners, and he was navigating back and forth. He said to the kids, okay, are you good? Yes. And he said, then you're going to sign back on at 1 something in the afternoon. Yep. And so what we are trying to do is that system's working really well for him. How can we have other teachers learn from him and do that same system? They're already sharing. In fact, there's a document out there, district-wide how-to videos. Pretty much anything a remote teacher could need is right there by a colleague trying to help each other, which we so appreciate. I do want to tell the board too, you received a shout out from our recent staff survey, because Fridays, the decision to have that be a non-in-person day, all remote day, when staff can finally catch their breath, as I like to say, for the week, sometimes the first time that week, but then they can collaborate, reach out to remote learners, and better yet, prepare for the following week. That time has been so valuable, and on behalf of them, I thank you for endorsing that. We do have people who are extremely stressed, though, still, and I imagine that will last for quite some time. And DPI recognizes that too. So what they did was put out, it's called Ddi Flexibility Applications. In other words, a waiver. And if you recall, in the spring when we were forced to close, we didn't apply for any waivers. We were close on the civics exam, but in the end we didn't have to. So I looked over all of those waivers, and in a meeting with DPI and like John Bales from WASDA and other officials, that term flexibility was used purposefully. They want us to know we have flexibility in that rigidity that adds natural stress to the world of education is softened. These are tough times. So in looking that over, I firmly believe that we don't need to apply for any of those waivers. I've had a number of discussions with teachers who, some really believe like if we would ask the board to endorse a waiver for educator effectiveness, that evaluation system, that would really help them feel less stressed. But I and others firmly believe, we can't, we have to continuously strive to improve, although with Amy and her new role and using that flexibility, we're going to walk through the process with them more streamlined than we ever have before. It doesn't have to be as rigid as it has been in the past, and we want it to be meaningful. So we're wanting to work with staff to ease their minds and take things off their plates and still do what we can for our kids. So that is what I have. There are two others who will speak to you tonight. The first is Matt and Ron will talk to you. We had said we'd have to take a look at how we take attendance for remote learners. And so Matt is here with an update on that.
Use my gym voice, I think you can all hear me. So this is it's a unique year for our families, our staff, our students, and so we really dive into what attendance is going to look like even before school started. The problem with that is sometimes we don't know exactly how it's going to look until we actually get into taking attendance. So with that said, we've had a variety of people involved in this process, from secretaries to DPI to staff to students, and we really looked at what we could do to make it flawless as possible. However, it's not flawless as possible, and there has been glitches. But each and every day, we've been involved with communicating with, again, staff, students, families, secretaries, DPI, on how we can make it better each and every day. So what we really looked at is how we can make sure we're tracking our in-person, our remote learners, and then also our temporary remote learners. And what I say by temporary remote learners is that some of our students have to go into quarantine, and we want to make sure that we can relay that message to staff that they're transferring to a remote learner, but also going to come back at some time. So we developed a temporary remote learning section for our staff to see. So if you're a staff member and you're taking attendance, you look at it as your in-person learners for attendance, your temporary learners if you have any, and then your remote learners. So it's broken up in three various sections so that you can see and it's clear to you on what students you have in person, temporary, and remote. So it's easier to track attendance. All right, and that's also flagged in our infant campus. So if you look at a student, you would see that they're an in-person learner, a temporary remote learner, or a remote learner. And it's broken up again in those three sections. So when we looked at our remote learning attendance, it's a little different than our in-person attendance. So when we take attendance at the high school or middle school or elementary, the default for in-person is present. The default for a temporary remote learner or a remote learner is not participated. So that's one of the glitches that we had, is that staff have to retrain their thinking and now think about it two different ways. To mark them absent if they're in person, if they're not there, and then as a remote learner, they would have to mark them participated, which is a different way of thinking that they've done it in the past. And so that's where some of our glitches have came in. But we worked extremely hard to fix that, and we've made tremendous strides in doing that, and we've cleaned up a lot of those attendance issues already. So that's kind of just a brief overview of what we've done and how we're tracking attendance in person, temporary, and remotely. Any questions?
So what does a remote parent have to do to make the kids look like they're present?
Yep. So we kind of went through what wording would look like, or what we've sent out to parents and our staff. And I'll just give you a brief summary of what it looks like. So attendance is taken on a weekly basis while keeping pace with learning lessons.
Weekly as in once a week, or as in they check in every day?
Yep, so they should check in every day to keep up with that weekly learning pace. So if a student were to try to do everything on Friday, it's probably going to be very difficult to try to cram in everything on one day.
And how are they checking in daily?
Yep, so a variety of ways. Like Julie had stated before, we have Canvas now up and running, but at like the high school, we've used Google Classroom a lot. We've checked in with emails. We made parent or student contact, parent contact. So all those different ways are ways that we can check in with students and counting them towards that participation. So it's a weekly pacing guide, but we want students to continue to work each and every day on each and every section of class at the high school level or at the elementary level, checking in with their home teacher.
So it's not like they gotta check in at a certain time? Because like I thought when we said remote learning, you can do this when you want to during the day. But I had at least one parent complain that they were supposed to check in at 8 a.m., but they weren't gonna do the work till later that day. So that's presumably gone now? Or?
So we're stressing just that there's clear communication with that teacher on if they're going to, for some reason, not be able to attend a certain session. But we also want to make sure that the message is that they're checking in each and every day, and if that can't happen, there should be direct communication with that teacher so there can be adjustments made.
So that would be okay?
Yes, correct, yep.
So I'm confused on Canvas now. So 2 weeks ago we said they couldn't link, but now they do link?
Mhm.
Okay. So then, when you were talking about the math teacher earlier, is
Bill
he
Yeager?
is he using Canvas, or was he using something else to do that so effectively?
Oh, that's a great question. All I know, JD, is he could see his students on his screen. So, Amy, would you know what Bill was using that day?
Yeah, fifth grade right now is using Google Classroom, and none of the classes yet are using Canvas because we still have an error message, but we think we found the fix today.
Okay.
Secretary's helped with that. It was some check boxes we needed to make sure were clicked for each student, and now we hope they are. They'll upload tonight at midnight, and we'll find out. So,
Thank you. And we did give, again, in the Friday communication, perhaps you saw, some teachers are really familiar now with Google Classroom and their students, so we're giving the rest of the quarter, encouraging them to take as much time as you need to transition to Canvas for start of second quarter. To say, oh, you're done, and then still have glitches, that wouldn't have been healthy for anyone. So that way they can take, those who are ready now can help their kids be ready now, and those who need more time have a whole month plus to them. Thank you, Matt.
Yes, you are welcome.
And we have other good news, a partnership update with the Boys and Girls Club from Heidi.
I think I spoke about it a little bit last time, but we have an MOU with the Boys and Girls Club to help some of our remote learners. Right now, we're starting with students with IEPs, but we hope to reach out to any student that might be struggling in the remote learner atmosphere. When our parents signed up, they weren't sure what they were signing up for, right? You know, and we're adjusting as we go, and so we're trying to meet the needs of those learners and have either a para or a teacher check in with those students one-to-one. The Boys and Girls Club has given us it, for free. They have a room for us. We have therapy already starting. We have a schedule. People sign up for it, and they're already signing up for it for whether evals, therapy sessions, check-ins with some parents or students as they need it to help get them facilitated in their remote learning. So.
Thank you. And that concludes our COVID update, unless you have questions for us.
When students go into quarantine, what is the process that they come back to the building? I probably missed that somewhere.
Well, Arlene, would you like to take that one? She has it memorized where I would.
At the end of the day, I'm not sure that I think it's all just mumbled up there, but if a student goes home on quarantine, they are quarantined for 14 days. They are encouraged, but not required to get a test in 3 to 5 days. even if it comes back negative, they still have to sit out the full 14 days. At the end of 14 days, they are free to come back to school without any further medical intervention or testing, as long as they're asymptomatic. If they are showing any signs of COVID during that time, they are then requested to recheck or get retested. So they are out. We do. The day that they go into quarantine is day 0, and then it's 14 days after that. So already next Monday, we already have 14 students come back.
And for those that have tested positive, what is the process for those students or staff to come back into the building?
Those that test positive, they will not be able to come back until they meet the 3M criteria. They're temperature-free for 24 hours without medication, and the symptoms have improved, and it's been 10 days since onset of symptoms. The reason they do the 10 days is they feel there is an infectious period prior to the presence of the infection. So that's why they give them 10 days. But if they are still having symptoms, public health may prolong that. And that is guided by public health. We didn't say this is when they'll be back, and public health usually concurs. But again, if they find through their contact tracing, which they are contacted by public health the best they can, either by email, and I know that they send out a survey where they check temperatures in the morning and at night and submit their responses, email, text, or by phone call. So they keep in contact with them closely.
So if they're asymptomatic, they don't have any symptoms, they had tested positive, are they required to test again before they come back?
No, as long as they're asymptomatic.
And
You
if
did very good.
Pardon me?
You did very good, all of
Thank you.
that.
And I would just like to thank our friends at Public Health, and again, Dr. McKinnon, I know Dr. Ddi, if you were working with us, we have such strong support and help in making decisions, and it's just been a wonderful team effort, so thanks to everyone involved.
And I do think we do have a great protocol in place. It is working. I know we do, at times, parents sometimes have a hard time understanding, but when we take the time to really explain it to them, we have a lot more gracious parents and a lot more grateful parents for taking the extra step to making sure that all the kids are safe than we do disgruntled ones. So it's working.
Okay, we will go on to new business, and with the introduction of student representatives, which would be Noel Fischendorf and Bailey Novi.
Yes. And Bailey is here in person with us, so welcome, Bailey. You can have a seat right there. Noel is running a cross-country meet tonight. So Noel has recorded a screencast for you to view. And so Dustin, if you could play that now, we'd be delighted.
Sure, I'm one of the new school board representatives this year. I am senior. I will be attending my 4th year Panago school. I like to stay pretty active with extracurricular activities, along with sports and clubs. I'm just here to say hey. I'm sorry I couldn't attend this meeting. I'm going to be running cross country at Ski. It'll start at 4:30, and I won't be able to attend this meeting tonight. Hopefully I'll get to see your faces at some point. So I'm just kind of here to say hey. I'll introduce myself, a little bit about myself. I originally went to All Saints and Peace Lutheran throughout my elementary and middle school years. up until high school, and then I moved over to the high school. It was a big change for me. I made a lot of new friends, and it's very nice to stay active within school because I just feel more involved in people's lives. So a little bit about myself. I love to play sports such as basketball. I used to do tennis. I do track, and I decided to do cross country in my senior year instead of tennis. I have an older brother and I have a younger sister. My older brother actually graduated a couple of years ago, I think in 2019. He is currently attending UW class. He's studying PT. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm just going to go over a little bit about the school year so far. So currently we have kicked off this week. It's our 4th week. And we've had our first dress-up day, which was today. It's Monday the 21st, which was Grey's Anatomy. We're doing a few more dress-up days this week. We're doing some activities throughout our pride times. Trying to stay active with what we can virtually with the whole pandemic. Our classes, for the most part, have been very well. A lot of the students like to have the board classes. That way they get to have more work time and comprehend their subjects. So that is a good thing. So a lot of people have been handling the mask wearing during school. It's a little challenging, but a lot of the students, for the most part, I see walking down the hallway. My dog just walked in. I also have a dog. Anyway, so a lot of the students I see in the hallways have their mask covered, their face and nose, mouth and nose. So they seem to be handling those guidelines pretty well. A lot of the students are very good at keeping their distance in the hallway, along with seating for lunch. The challenging part, I would say, would be our club meetings, which are all going to be held. This Wednesday will be our first club meeting, so it will be held during that 5 time, and there will be a bunch of club meetings going on at once. So we'll see how that goes, and I'll report back on that. But currently, everyone seems to be doing all right. The virtual learners seem to be getting the same material as the in-person learners. The students seem to be doing their work fairly well. A lot of them all have to turn them on online, so that's a little different for us. But I think everyone seems to be handling that all right. Just scroll down a little bit. So during our Fridays, we don't have school. We are at home. We just do our virtual learning from home. So a lot of students say they are given quizzes or just homework throughout the weekend to do on Fridays. Usually students are given a little assessment to show their attendance on Friday. So kind of concluding, this is kind of jumped all over, I'm sorry. It's our football game this Friday. Unfortunately, a lot of the students will not be attending that because the football players are handed out 4 tickets, and usually it's for the family members. We've had our cohort voting this week. Our second round will be actually closed tomorrow morning, which will be Tuesday the 22nd. So we'll be announcing those on Thursday, our last day at school. The boys will be getting a rose, and then we'll find the girls in their homeroom, and that'll kind of be like live stream for everyone to watch. So that'll be something new and very interesting. Do you guys have any topics that you would like me to bring up, or anything I've missed, or you'd like me to hear for next month? Please let me know. I would gladly be able to report anything. Just give me a heads up. Nice meeting you all. Bye.
All right, so since Noelle couldn't be there, I suggested that screencast for her, so that was her first screencast that she had created. So, you know, anything this, different times calls for different ways of learning and reporting, so Bailey was here in person, so welcome Bailey.
Thank you. Is the microphone? Is it put up? Can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. Hello everyone, my name is Bailey Novi and I am also a senior at Anigo High School this year. I grew up in Anigo for most of my life. I was born here and my family moved back here from Wausau, and I attended 5th grade at Pleasant View Elementary. I went to Anigo Middle School before graduating and coming to the high school. Some of you might know my grandparents, Sean and Dennis Novi. I live right down the driveway from them, south of town on Highway 45. I try to be a really high-achieving and hardworking student in school. I take a lot of STEM-based classes, and my aspiration is to become an environmental engineer, and I plan on majoring in that in college. My sophomore year, I applied to an independent school in Mid-Coast, Maine, called Chilwaukee, for a semester program that was focused on environmental science in all aspects of academics. I got accepted with a generous scholarship, so I attended that in fall of 2019. I returned and I got back late December, and then a month or two later COVID hit, so I felt kind of disconnected from my peers during that time. But that experience definitely sparked my interest in environmental science and caused me to choose my major. So even though COVID hit throughout the summer, I continued working. I worked full-time for a company called AgSource, where I was a crop scout and I scouted potato fields around Anigo and around the state. And I also worked at Walmart as a customer service manager during that time. So I was working about 50 hours a week. And I'm still working at Walmart now. AgSource was a seasonal job that ended, but those two jobs really helped me grow and figure out what I wanted to do as far as a career. As far as classes, right now I'm taking Physics 2 Advanced Engineering, which is dual credit with North Central Technical College, AP Language and Composition. I do work co-op with Walmart, and I'm also actually taking a Calculus 2 class online through UW-Stevens Point. For my extracurriculars, I participate in girls ice hockey. I run track and field in the spring. I'm a member of Key Club. I compete in forensics, NHS, and over the summer, this past summer, I did a little bit of research with a graduate student at EWSP with wildlife ecology. So as far as the school year starting, I tried to get in touch with a student and a teacher to see how they are feeling about how school is being run right now and what's going on with classes and everything. The student I talked to said that in class, she goes in person to the high school, and she's a freshman. And basically, she kind of said that their classes that she's taking have limited interaction with the remote learners, except for agri-science, which is like one of the tech ed classes. She told me that, and I've observed this as well, like Noelle said, most kids are very respectful, wearing masks and socially distancing, and they wear the masks correctly and follow like the procedures that are put in place. And the students that choose not to, we see them reprimanded sometimes, which we're happy about because that keeps us safe. talking a little bit about homeroom. Our homeroom teacher is our first hour teacher, which kind of limits the amount that we travel in between classes and interact with students. So a big thing we're focusing on right now in homeroom is the 7 Mindsets, which is a program that kind of inspires students to think a little deeper, and we watch a lot of inspirational videos, which kind of early in the day helps us stay on track for the rest of the school day and stay focused. I think there's mixed opinions on the block scheduling. As you guys know, high schoolers have 4 classes. The student I talked to said she dislikes block scheduling because though it gives us more time to complete work, the lack of interaction with peers can be really draining socially. And then I also talked to one of the high school teachers about teaching remotely specifically. And so I talked to Amy Hine yesterday, who is, she's an English teacher at the high school. She teaches English 10 honors, AP literature and composition, and a couple dual credit classes in English.
And an 8th grade language class.
Oh, as well, that too? Oh, I didn't know about that. I had her for 2 years, and she's awesome. She's really good with students. A lot of what I'm saying here is like a direct quote from her. I kind of like transcribed my conversation with her, but I asked her, how much preparation do you teachers do for remote learning? And she said most of the prep work that they do is considering what the in-class students are doing, like the non-virtual learners, and how it can be transferred to the virtual learners. They've been doing a lot of review from last year because obviously the school year was transferred to remote in March, and it has taken like a little bit of catch-up time. We kind of lost a bit of time on that, I think. But so most of her prep work for the week is done on the week before on Fridays, and she, like Dr. Sprague said, that's a really valuable time for them, and she really values that they had that time slot open where they can work on that. Block scheduling can make it hard to anticipate how fast we go through material because we've had block scheduling before, but last year we had it 2 days a week, and now we are having it pretty much the entire instructional time. So like for physics right now, for example, we are cutting back on the number of labs we're doing, and we're trying to cover as much textbook material as we can to stay on track, which is a give and take. Like for students who learn well through lectures like myself, I like it a lot, but my classmate said he really appreciates the labs and he wished we could integrate them a little bit more, but in the future we can look at that maybe. But yeah, so on Fridays a lot she will respond to emails and comments, and usually at night, Monday through Thursday, at least an hour daily, she tries to look at her email and respond to the virtual learners and make sure that they're getting what they need on a daily basis, which is obviously more of a workload than last year. That's something new that I had to take on. Fridays are also spent scanning documents, rewriting assessments from Google Doc form into Google Quiz, which is what a lot of teachers are using Google Classroom right now. Online class meetings are a big part of it as well, and just having like set office hours or sometimes flexible office hours for virtual learners to say, I need your help, can you just get with me one-on-one, or maybe like one-on-one or with my class for office hours. And then she said she takes attendance a lot based on work completion, and she tries to do that daily. Ms. Hine also does not have a prep hour this quarter, which several teachers I've talked to said that kind of puts a strain on them. So a lot of her work that she would otherwise do during that time period is done on Fridays, such as lecture recordings and for the virtual learners for the following week. Unfortunately, some assignments cannot translate into remote learning, and a lot of her assignments she's had to write from scratch with assessments. With the Google quizzes, there's not a really great option for timing them, so teachers who like to do timed assessments, they had to be a little bit flexible and experiment with that. As far as work completion, she said she's having like a high percentage of students who are virtual complete work much better than it was last spring. And kids who don't complete work, don't respond, she puts a lot of time and energy into reaching out to them and making sure that they're okay and maybe see how they're doing at home. She makes a lot of phone calls too. So if there is a student who maybe is not completing so much work, it's kind of an all or nothing thing. But very few students are not completing their work according to like the deadlines that she sets. And for her 3 high school classes, she said about 15 or 20% of her students are online. Another thing that she wanted me to emphasize is that teachers, and this is a quote from her, are exhausted and stretched thin, and she requests that the school board remembers to give grace and give just a bit of understanding and kindness and consider how the workload has increased for teachers this year, and what goes into their everyday timing, time management, and all the assignments that they've had to rewrite and all of that. She expressed some concern about statewide test scores such as the ACT Aspire and the ACT and how it might be affected with virtual learning. And she just was wondering if that comes back to the teachers and their job performance and if that will be reflected directly on them. She said a lot of teachers are not so much worried about the COVID transmission. Obviously they want to keep students safe, but a lot of them would prefer that virtual learning, it's not ideal. And she said she was really glad that we decided to resume in person to some extent, because a lot of kids need it. And she is very glad that Canvas is being integrated and they're giving them until second quarter to do that, because it was kind of it was a long process for everyone, I think, for the IT people and the teachers to learn to use this new platform. And I use Canvas for my calculus class at UW Stevens Point, and I really like it. I think a lot of the high schoolers are going to appreciate that platform over Google Classroom. But it's still a process going into that, and like I said, a lot of teachers told me, middle school and high school, that they plan on waiting until second quarter starts to fully implement the Canvas platform into their classes. So that pretty much concludes what I have to say. If you guys have any questions, like Noelle said, just reach out to myself or her. We have our school district email, so you could probably find this pretty easily on there, or ask Mr. Rogers. And if there's nothing else, that would be it.
Well, let's welcome Bailey and Noelle. These young ladies have prepared. They've looked at some reports from last year's student representatives, and they just want to make them better. And that's the message I got from Bailey and Noelle. So advice, please send it my way or Bailey and Noelle's, and we'll get her improving. Thank you.
Thank you, Bailey. We will go on to approve the committee of the whole minutes from September 8th.
I move the board approve the minutes from the committee of the whole meeting on September 8, 2020.
Second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will go into item C, which is the inquiry into 440 Delagoose property. Maybe we'll just start with Tim. Could you tell us how we acquired that property, maybe what it cost us, what it's used for?
So, and let me just pull up an email real quick on the date. I guess it's all relative. In the last, I think it must have been approximately 6 years ago. A party approached us saying that they lived outside the community and they used that property as a rental property for a number of years, and it had gone into disrepair. They had no interest in owning the property, and they approached the school district to buy it. And why we were interested is this, we were talking about, at the time, looking at consolidation and possibility of adding on to West Elementary. The property abuts up to Schofield Stadium on the east side of the stadium. And at that particular time, the fire and ambulance service were having trouble getting through the parking lot at West Elementary School. And they had requested an alternate location to access the field. So we bought the property from the owners with closing costs and like title work. I think it came to $8,800. The house was in considerable disrepair, so we tore it down. We had to do some asbestos work prior to the tear down and raising. And I think then we had development work for the parking lot and fencing. And I believe we had around $21,000 or $22,000 in repairs to that. And we've used it to give the fire department and ambulance service an alternate exit to Schofield for the football games ever since. And the property owners are adjacent to this, and as the email indicated, they were interested in using the site for a garage.
Okay.
So I would say in summary, we probably have just over between $32,000 and $35,000 invested. And, I don't know if we'll ever go down the road of expanding West Elementary or what we're going to do on that site. But as we'll learn later in the meeting tonight, there are plans for Schofield. So it does provide us access to the property from the east. And I don't know if we'd want to give that up.
Okay. It makes sense to me that if we're using it, that we want to sell it.
And I think if you're the homeowner, they only see 5 nights a year, 4 or 5 nights a year that we're using that particular location. So for them, I can understand why they would inquire, because throughout the year, there's not a whole lot of activity, and we're sending someone down to shovel the sidewalk, maintain the property, pick up the garbage and whatever. And it is right next door to them, so I can see why they might think it might be available.
Okay, we did, I did not have that listed as an action item, but if anybody thinks it ought to be moved forward as an action item, we can take it up at a different meeting.
Doesn't sound like something we should sell.
Okay.
What did JD say?
He said it doesn't sound like something we should sell.
Oh,
And I would agree, if we're using it, even though it's 5 nights a week, if you're the injured person, 5 nights a year, if you're the injured person on the field, and I know getting in the other way from Schofield Stadium can be very difficult sometimes.
Yeah, potentially during the school year, it's stuff to be used for overflow parking, but not.
Well, at one point, we were actually talking about, like with the expansion that we had talked about several years ago, we were using as an alternate drive for busing. So you might access the site via that property for daily drop-off and pickup.
My guess would be that if they did want to tender an offer, it probably would not be close to what we have invested in the property, potentially.
Yeah, that would be up to them, but I think we're saying that we're not interested in selling it, so there's no point in them tendering
That's
an
the
offer.
better idea.
Are we able to divide it at all, or is that something we have to bring with the city?
Jim, the unfortunate part of it is the way the stadium is set up now. The access is it's right along their property is where the football field is separated from West Elementary and the stadium. So if we would, let's say, cut the property in half, that would require that we would have to relocate the fence on the south side of the field, right, Jake?
Yep, sure.
So it just would be prohibited for us to go through all that work to split the property.
Sure, sure.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? We'll just let that go as we're not interested in selling it.
So administration will go back and let the folks know.
You're right there. So you understand why we're not interested in selling it?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go on to board action, consideration to approve the 2020-2021 Boys and Girls Club of Langley County Agreement.
Move the board approve the 2020-2021 Boys and Girls Club of Langley County Agreement as presented.
I'll second that.
Any questions or comments on this? Then we do a roll call.
Boulder,
Yes.
Deep,
Yes.
Gagnon,
Yes.
Long, Newfeld, Hyatt,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Walzer,
Yes.
and Mary.
Yes. And we'll go on to consideration to approve Schofield Stadium renovation.
I move the board approve the following low bids for the Schofield Stadium renovation from Musin Brothers for general site work and storm sewer in the amount of $112,482 and sports field for goalposts in the amount of $10,400.
Second.
Any questions or comments on this?
And the money's from the gridiron.
Yeah, and if you just want a quick recap, I brought it, I'm surprised to find it was a year and a half ago already for this process to begin. With me tonight is Chad Manchesky, he's the president for the Gridiron Club, and we've worked with Point of Beginning and brought that agreement to you to get this project started along with permission to fundraise. Point of Beginning did all the engineering and design for this, and we've kind of had a long road with it as far as finding what is right for our specific field that's somewhat unique, and then also in the support from the community on what we want to do with this field going forward. We covered everything from the $500,000 Cadillac version down to the stripped down $50,000 version. And then there's a lot of pros and cons along the way, but I think that Chad and the Gridiron Club have done a nice job at working through that, really having an understanding of the project so that they're fully vested and sold on what they're getting for their money. And then also on the flip side, the fundraising part, that's a big part. Without our booster clubs, we couldn't do any of these things. So, that's a big thanks to Chad and the Gridiron Club for doing that. It's taken a while to get us to where we want to be. So, we actually bid once. Pricing came back not where we were hoping, so we had to kind of reconvene, and then ultimately rebid with the second design, but still, keeping Point Beginning on the team and on board with what we were doing to ensure that we had a good quality product moving forward and that we weren't going to run it too thin. So ultimately what that decision looked like was the field will get basically fully tore up, redo the shape and the compaction of it with the subsoils, put in drainage, storm sewer drains along each sideline with catch basins, and get that water out to the road on Fifth Ave so that we get rid of the water problem that we've had for a lot of years of creating low spots and soft spots. Also, that includes a crowning properly to the field to make that happen. We looked at everything from amending the topsoil to make it drain better, adding irrigation then to make it the proper moisture, even though we were moving it away with drain tile, things like that. And ultimately, we decided was to get rid of the drain tile and the irrigation, stick with the crowning, and just have the side drainage to get the water away from the field completely. You know, like I said, Chad and the Gridiron Club did a really good job at, you know, they really believe in what the decision we came to. Chad was on a lot of phone calls with Point of Beginning and myself and drilled down to exactly what every option we had and why we wanted to go the way we did. So I guess with that, that's kind of the scope and how we got here. You know, Chad's here tonight. He would like to kind of speak and talk about the finances and where that's going to be coming from.
Yeah, so, I mean, the total project, in addition to the bid that Mustin had, there's some contingency, some design fees, things of that nature. Plus there's the sod that's going to be put on after the fact of that initial bid. So the total project is like $171,000. So we do have the funds committed by our donors to cover that, in addition to the funds that our club has saved away to cover those funds. We are going to continue to fundraise just because we want to make sure we have a cushion. Plus, we know that there's other projects that could happen at Schofield Stadium in the future that we would like to have a cushion for and prepare for. So at this point, we're looking forward to getting this contract signed, getting through the season, and hopefully seeing some dirt move yet this late fall in preparation for spring, and getting the project completed in the spring, and being ready to play on this new field next fall. So.
Okay. Good for you. Good effort on all that fundraising. I imagine that wasn't too much fun.
We've had a lot of good support through the community, and still looking for more. So there you go.
We'll have to call on you, Chad, next time we need to fundraise.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Maybe go ahead and do a roll call.
Ddi,
Yes.
Gagnon,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Neufeld,
Yes.
Hyatt,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Balzer,
Yes.
Bolduc,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes. And we'll go on to item C, report of district new hires.
I move the board approve the following new hire, Heather McCann, middle school principal.
Seconded.
Any questions or comments on this? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Welcome to your new position, Heather. And we'll go on to a report of donations.
I move the board accept the following donations: $2,000 from KMN Inc., doing business as Little Caesars of Antigua Food Service Angel Fund.
Seconded.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Just a comment that I find it very heartwarming to business that the district supported through all this stuff from last year with COVID turns around and donates money back to the district.
Yep.
That is money well spent.
Yeah.
It's good community service and we love it.
And Tim, do you know offhand where this leaves us in the unpaid lunch fund?
I don't have a current balance.
Okay.
You know, and now with the, we're going back to the summer feeding program where all meals are free this year, at least for the interim now. You know, I kind of put that on the back burner as something to be watching.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Then we have a motion to adjourn.
So, adjourned.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I just don't think there are many boards having 1 hour meetings right now.
I think they're all
never less.
half of them are doing it by Zoom. They don't want to sit around with their mask.
That was, yeah, great.